Arcade Heroes.
Hello there, fellow arcade heroes. This is Adam with ArcadeHeroes.com, here for a preview of a brand new arcade game that is coming to us from the minds at Sega Amusements. That's the arcade division of Sega, and so it's a big company, has a lot of divisions, and they don't always really interact with each other. But yeah, the people making arcade games with the Sega name on them is still going strong. And so this is the latest thing that they have coming to us, and that, as you can see from the side here, is Mission Impossible Arcade, based on the Mission Impossible TV and movie series of the same name by Paramount Studios. And so earlier this year, we received news that Sega was going to unveil a big, major franchise license at IAPA 2019. Now, if you're new to the arcade business, just a quick course on what that is. IAPA is a trade show, and well, it's an organization that runs trade shows. But when they say IAPA with the year after it, or IAPA Expo 2019, it's talking about a major trade show, and the equivalent to it in gaming circles would be E3. It's like the E3 of the arcade or amusement business. And so you get all the latest, newest arcade developments. You get a lot of virtual reality stuff. You get a lot of new rides for theme parks are shown at this event as well, and including some roller coasters. So organizations like Universal Studios and SeaWorld sometimes will unveil their latest rides at this event. And so it's a pretty big show. It happens down in Orlando, always the week before Thanksgiving. And so when I'm recording this, it'll start a week from today. It starts on Tuesday, November the 19th, and goes to the 22nd, which is on Friday. So I will be at this show to catch all of the latest, greatest developments that will be there, including Mission Impossible Arcade. But just figured that while I will do a preview video for that at the end of this week, I'm just waiting for everybody to send out things like this, because this popped up early this morning before I was awake, and I woke up, checked my email, and there it was. So there might be more of that hitting by Friday, or hopefully it'll hit by Friday and not afterwards, not too last minute. But so what popped up was this press release from Sega, and it has quotes from different people in the company, and talking about how excited they are to unveil this game and bring it to the world. Now, this isn't the first time that Sega has worked with Paramount Studios. You might be familiar with some of their Transformers games. In 2011, they released Transformers Human Alliance, and then last year they released Transformers Shadows Rising, which, personally, in my opinion, this was a better game than the first one. As a sequel, it did everything that a sequel needs to do, and it was fun. I like everything about that one that they did, but it does seem like there's a bit of Transformers fatigue out there, just from all the movies that have come and gone, and I don't know, it doesn't seem like as many people have really been talking about this release as they had been in the past, and this is the only cabinet design of it, this deluxe model. They don't have a standard one, but maybe that'll be at IAPA. There's always a surprise or two to be found at this trade show. It's not fun. But also coming to us from the same producer that did both of the Transformers games is this Mission Impossible Arcade. And so let's throw up the image of that. Here we go. So when I first saw this, I was a little surprised. I wasn't really sure what to make of it, as in the thumbnail it looked really strange, and then blowing it up, I still had to take a moment to process what I was seeing, because it's a bit different from your typical arcade setup, which has the monitor in front, the control panel right behind it, and you stand or sit behind that, and the action's right there. But at first it's like, what on earth's going on? But blowing it up, looking closer, you can see that the monitors and the controls are on the sides of the cabinet as opposed to the back. So that back one, that's a 65-inch monitor, and that interacts with the player to a degree. So when you pass by, there's a motion sensor, and and that'll play something, a soundbite and a video saying, "Come in here, be a recruit of the IMF, and join the forces to fight the bad guys and whatnot." Or actually, I guess what they've done, according to the press release, is it's been designed to look like the IMF Impossible Mission Force safe house. The interiors are full of details that convey the feel of the top-secret high-tech hideout. Edge lighting on the control area and on subwoofers, spot player lighting and LED floor lighting strips not only floods more light in the cabinet, but also immerse the player in the high-tech feel of the game. All of the fast-paced action takes place on two huge 55-inch HD screens. I guess it's 1080p, should be 4K, don't know. Video camera feed shows the leading team player's face in-game, adding a touch of competitive spirit. 4 powerful bass shakers embedded in the floor in conjunction with surround sound and subwoofers lets players experience all the explosive action. Now, one thing that I definitely cannot fault Sega on is their sound design. In House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn, they had a system that's called Extreme Audio, and if you've not played that, then it's really hard to convey exactly how it feels. It's one of the best audio experiences in a modern arcade piece, and I was really impressed with what they pulled off in that, especially in the seat, because they were able to recreate the feel of foam vibrating in your pocket in the seat, and that was really cool. But you had to use the extreme audio to get that effect. And so while they're not using the term extreme audio here like they did with Scarlet Dawn, that's what it sounds like they're aiming to do with this unique cabinet. Now, another thing that this cabinet reminded me of is from Sega's history. They have done what were called special attraction games, and so you had this with Jurassic Park Lost World, you had it with House of the Dead 4, you had it with what's shown here, sorry I keep pointing in the wrong direction, Let's Go Jungle Special. And so you would go into a room, and usually the seat had a motion component to it. That was the case with I think all of these. I'm not sure about the Let's Go Jungle Special, but at least House of the Dead 4 and Lost World had a motion seat, so it had 2 opposing screens, and so you'd be facing one screen, shoot at enemies, and then suddenly you would shift, and then the other screen had enemies, and you had to shoot them too. And so that's kind of the feel that I get here with how they've designed this cabinet. Obviously, there's no motion seat inside of it, but the 2 opposing screens is definitely a departure from the norm on arcade cabinet design, and I have nothing to complain about in that regard. I like seeing things be done a little differently. As you can also see on that oval part where you have red and blue, I think that's the fuse part. It talks about that in the press release where it says, the awe-inspiring attraction cabinet features the iconic fuse from the films. Bright fuse-like animation light around the edge of the cabinet moves gradually, giving this cabinet a distinctive look that engages player attention from across the room. Then it talks about the proximity sensor and the track screen inviting players to join the covert task force. So overall, it sounds like this is going to be impressive. Now, another thing that they threw out in the email is that this is not a final design. Something about it might change, and that's the case with all of these cabinets when it comes to a major franchise or a license. Is the licensee or the licensor always has final say on everything, and sometimes they might not like something, change something about it before the final release. So this has probably been through the ringer of 100 different management levels at Paramount and Sega already, so I can't imagine that it will have changed much, but you never know, it still might change a little bit. And of course, whatever they've actually manufactured may be a little different, but it also depends on how far out it is from release. That's one thing they did not say from what I caught in the press release. It doesn't mention when this is supposed to come out, so it could be available as soon as IAPA itself, because it says at the end of the press release, we will have our entire sales team and key R&D personnel to discuss this and other products at the show. But my guess is that it'll come out sometime in 2020, spring, maybe summer 2020. That seems to be Sega's release schedule for a lot of things that they debut at IAPA. And so it might depend on how far along the software is. We don't know how long this has been in development. But one thing I am trying to do is, since I will be at IAPA, is to talk with the producer of this game. So his name is mentioned in the press release, and his work you would probably be familiar with because he was the producer of many of Sega's arcade games, including Ocean Hunter, Jambo Safari, the two Transformers games, two Let's Go, like Let's Go Jungle, Let's Go Island games, and then Target Bravo, Operation Ghost, or just Operation Ghost games. And so when it comes to a light gun game, he's usually involved in it at Sega in some degree. So he's also the producer for this, but I should be able to interview him at the show and do a video of that. And so that should be fun. So if you have any questions for it, throw it in the comments down there, and perhaps I'll use your question in the interview as well. But one of the things that Mr. Shinichi Ogasawara talks about, again, he usually goes by Ogashi, but talks about the controllers. Now, when I was looking at this, that's what confused me at first, because very unusual for an arcade cabinet to use mounted pistols. So a lot of the games out there, like the Transformers Shadows Rising, you can't really see it in this picture here, but it has mounted guns on it, but they're like big shells, almost like cannons. They usually have two joystick-like handles on them, and you just pull the triggers here, and they might have a thumb trigger as well to activate something else, maybe like a grenade function, or sometimes it's just another fire button and does the same thing as the triggers. But most of the time these have not really been too different. That way they function internally is the same, as they use two potentiometers, one to detect the x-axis movement, the other to detect the y-axis movement. But again, pistols, like we see in this Mission Impossible game, very unusual, and I can't really think of anything that's done mounted pistols like this. Now, my guess is that still the lighted cable that's there might be LED lit, but it's probably solid, probably doesn't move around, but it does look like these are attached to some sort of swivel base. But in the press release, again, Shinichi-san says that the brand new dual pistol controllers are the next stage in-game controller technology. Using cutting-edge accelerometer technology increases controller reliability by reducing moving parts. In other words, it probably doesn't use potentiometers like 99% of mounted gun games do these days. But the accelerometers are used in console joystick game pads, and like Wiimotes is probably the one thing that really popularized that technology. And moving on to the press release, the new controller allows a greater range of motion, smoother movement, great accuracy, and its ergonomic design makes gameplay very comfortable. Feature lighting on the controller entices players and encourages them to keep playing. This new hardware synergizes perfectly with game software, allowing us to create fun new elements to the way players eliminate enemies. Using a single trigger fires a high accuracy shot, while holding down the triggers allows for dual-wield burst damage. Hey, spray and pray. And so, yeah, that's very interesting. I'm very curious to see how this will work in practice. I'm pretty sure that Scarlet Dawn also used accelerometers, and I liked those guns. They seemed to be pretty accurate, and they were comfortable. Don't know how they've fared out now that the game's been out for over a year now. So it might be that they're really reliable, or I don't know. But I did enjoy the Scarlet Dawn guns, and I found them to be better than the House of the Dead 4 guns, which were notorious for breaking down. So if these are more reliable, then that's what arcade operators like myself really enjoy, because that means the game's up. And of course, players do too. You never like it when you come to an arcade machine. It doesn't work on it. And that removes part of the experience, or maybe it makes it unplayable. So better reliability is better for everybody. So again, I'll be there to see how this works. Now, as to the gameplay, there's a blog post about this on Arcade Heroes already, and since I posted that earlier this morning, I contacted one of the people that's on the development team for this game, and he said that me using Confidential Mission, which was a game that Sega released back in 2000, back at the height of Mission Impossible mania, I guess you could call it. If you weren't born yet or too young, then you wouldn't remember this. But around 2000, there was a lot of hype behind the Mission Impossible franchise. You had the second one coming up, and everybody was excited about that. And I would say that there was more hype around that than the James Bond films. Of course, you had GoldenEye in the late 90s, and the GoldenEye N64 game did extremely well, but there was a lot of hype about the Mission Impossible movies. So at the time, Sega released Confidential Mission, and that was kind of like Mission Impossible without the Mission Impossible license. And also from a line in the press release that I'll read here in a second, it sounded like it came straight off of the Confidential Mission flyer, but in asking him about it, he said that, let me pull the email here, I had this ready to go off the bat. It said, it is quite different to Confidential Mission, and that's a direct quote. So how exactly, I'm not 100% sure, won't know until I get a chance to check it out, but here are a couple of paragraphs from the press release that give us a better idea of how the game plays. So, quote, Mission Impossible arcade gameplay is easy to grasp, fun, and full of thrilling action. Players take on the role as an IMF trainee and must complete missions to sabotage enemy plans that aim to weaponize humanoid robots, so a little bit of Terminator. Players will use advanced spy gadgets and weapons to complete their missions. That's the line that almost sounds word for word from the Confidential Mission flyer. Playing as a single or two-person team, players must complete missions before the rival team does. I like that element to it. Adds some competitive edge, and that's what they say here. This adds a fun and competitive edge to the game, as players will be competing versus real opponents in linked games or versus AI in unlinked games. Obviously, like any 4-player game, the more players you have, or if it's fully stocked with players, it's going to be more complete, full experiences by yourself. Continuing on the quote, the gameplay sees players complete 9 stages across 3 action-packed missions. Players will have to stealthily descend great heights, hack systems, eliminate opponents, track enemy targets, blast down doors, shoot and chase down enemies. Mission Impossible arcade gameplay software is truly packed with explosive action, excitement, suspense, and humor from start to end. From that line there, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just all PR speak, but it sounds intriguing to me, sounds fun to me. The different elements to it sounds a lot like what we got in Operation Ghost, particularly the Target Bravo Operation Ghost update. If you've not come across that one, then it is too bad, as that was a really nice update to Operation Ghost. Added some of these goal-focused missions that made the game a lot more interesting. The only problem I had with Target Bravo is just they should have updated the graphics, because they looked very aged, very dated by the time they came around with that update. If they'd only fixed that, it would have been a perfectly fine game. But it does have you doing things as a team, or kind of competing against the other player, and they were designed for 2 players to compete on. So it sounds like they've just taken that idea and amped it up with what these different missions are. And of course, Target Bravo does also have chases, and, sniper events, and things of that nature. But this obviously has a lot more stealth elements to it, which is also a rare thing to hear about in arcades. Generally don't do Metal Gear Solid type stuff, although there is Metal Gear Arcade. Forgot about that one. But that was also a bit more action-packed than a stealth sneaking around game. So yeah, that's what we can expect to see out of Sega next week. Of course, that's not going to be their only brand new game. They're going to have Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games 2020 there as well, and they'll have some other redemption pieces. But here at Arcade Heroes, you know me, I'm more into the video games than I am the redemption pieces. I cover them if they have a video screen usually. Or Redemption, as I like to call them. But this is not a Redemption game, which makes me happy. And this is also obviously something made for family entertainment centers, also known as FECs. So there have been other Super Deluxe cabinets. House of the Dead Scarlet Dawn is one that, again, Sega released. last year or earlier this year, and this in itself is kind of a response of a sort to Raw Thrills' Halo Fireteam Raven Super Deluxe, which had 2 screens on it and had 4 mounted guns. But I guess they've been able to take a look at that and come up with their own unique twist, their own license, or well, not their own license, but a major license, and go in their own direction on that. So again, I will have an IAPA preview video at the end of this week and to put up onto YouTube here before the show starts. I will be filming extensively at the show, try and get more interviews as well. I haven't done many of those in a while. And yeah, just have plenty to show you over the next few weeks as to what will be coming to arcades throughout 2020. Now, as an arcade operator, a small independent arcade operator, and that's where I'm at in case you're curious here. So I'm in my arcade right now, and of course a lot of people are always like, why are all the games off? Well, it's early in the morning. I'm in a mall, so I have to be open at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. is not usually a time where people like to go out and play arcade games. They usually like to go out at night, so I usually just keep most things off until somebody comes in and says, hey, I want to play something. But I know it's confusing sometimes, but that's why it's they're all off. And it'll also be kind of hard to record this if everything's on top of that. And oh, and by the way, the music playing in the background is from the Mission Impossible Nintendo 64 game. In case you're curious where that was from, but I decided not to use the Mission Impossible theme song because that'd probably get a copyright strike, and we can't have those. One thing I was going to mention as a small independent operator, sorry, I love getting off on tangents, is that I hope they release a 2-player version of this eventually. Like with the Halo Fireteam Raven, that was first released as this, and it was like that for probably about 8 months or so. And then they released a 2-player smaller version. So I'm hoping that that's kind of the case with this one, is that they'll get this out there first and make places like Dave & Buster's and Round One USA happy. And companies that are loaded with cash that want big experience pieces like this. As much as I would love to have that, I just can't afford to pay $30,000 to $40,000 every time one of these games comes out, as much as I wish I could. So the smaller games, while they may lose some of the elements, the experience, the ambiance from the cabinet, you can still keep most of that intact with the 2-player cabinet. That's all I could ask for. So hopefully there is something like that in the pipeline. We'll find out probably late next year. But again, that is Mission Impossible Arcades. I'll mention it again in the preview video, and I'll get direct footage of this next week. And let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And if you have any questions you'd like to ask of the development team, also let me know in advance so that I can get that to them, because some of them might need to be translated into Japanese. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.